They don't fear what you say as much as they fear what you don't say. Your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. It unsettles them because it forces them to face their own thoughts without distraction. When you are quiet, they are left with themselves, and that is what terrifies them the most. Words can be debated, argued against, twisted, or dismissed. But silence? Silence cannot be controlled. Silence leaves them no place to hide, no excuse to cling to, no defense to lean on. That is why they fear your silence more than your words. When you choose to stay quiet, you take away the weapon of conflict. You remove the fuel for their arguments, the justification for their accusations, the comfort of their illusions. Your silence becomes a mirror, and they are forced to see their own weakness reflected back at them. They wonder what you are thinking. They wonder why you are calm. They wonder what power you carry inside that allows you to withhold words when others would shout. And in that wondering, they feel small. Your silence unsettles the ground beneath their confidence because it shows them that your strength is not dependent on noise. It is rooted in something much deeper. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strategy. Silence is strength. It is the chosen ones who understand this truth. Sometimes the loudest statement is no statement at all. You've learned that not every battle deserves your voice. Not every critic deserves your answer. Not every rumor deserves your energy. You've discovered the discipline of restraint, and that discipline makes people nervous. They cannot measure you. They cannot predict you. They cannot define you. And when people cannot define you, they fear you. Think about how many times you could have spoken to defend yourself but didn't. How many times you could have explained yourself but chose not to. How many times you could have shouted back, but instead you walked away. Those moments were not weakness. They were wisdom. They revealed that your sense of worth is not tied to proving a point. You don't need to win every argument because you are focused on winning the war. And in your silence, you show them that their noise cannot control you. This is why silence is feared more than words. Words can be dismissed, but silence lingers. Words can be twisted, but silence cannot be reshaped. Words can be forgotten, but silence echoes. When you withdraw your energy, when you refuse to respond, when you hold your peace, you are telling the world that your strength is not on display, it is within. And that terrifies those who thrive on drama, conflict, and chaos. They don't know how to fight someone who doesn't swing back. They don't know how to silence someone who is already silent. They don't know how to defeat someone who doesn't need the last word. And so, they watch you quietly, nervously, trying to guess your next move. They wonder if your silence is a sign of strength or a sign of preparation. They wonder if you know something they don't. They wonder what you're planning, what you're building, what you're waiting for. And all of this wondering creates fear, because the unknown is more frightening than the spoken. That is your power. That is the gift of your silence. Before we go deeper, I want you to pause for a moment. You didn't arrive here by chance. You are watching this because this message is meant for you in this exact season of your life. That's why I encourage you to stay with me until the very end, because there are powerful truths waiting for you that will unlock something inside your spirit. And while you're here, take a moment to write your warmest wishes in the comments and add the number 777 next to them. This is not just a gesture. It is an act of belief, a way of sending your energy into the universe and aligning yourself with what you desire most. And don't forget to subscribe, because this space is for the chosen ones like you, those who walk in silence yet carry power that cannot be denied. Now, let's return to the truth of who you are and why your silence unsettles them so deeply. People fear silence because silence leaves space for truth. When you say nothing, they are forced to fill in the gaps with their own doubts. They wonder what you are thinking. They imagine what you might do. They replay their own insecurities in their minds. Your silence becomes a stage where their fear performs. This is why you don't always need to defend yourself. The quiet you carry is already speaking louder than arguments ever could. There's power in knowing you don't have to respond to every attack. You don't have to lower yourself into every pit they try to drag you into. You don't have to match their volume to prove your strength. By refusing to give energy to their noise, you protect your peace. And protecting your peace is one of the greatest weapons a chosen one possesses. Because once you master silence, you master control. Control of your energy, control of your emotions, control of your destiny. And people fear those who cannot be controlled. Think about the last time you stayed silent when everything inside you wanted to shout back. At that moment, you shifted the balance of power. They expected a fight. They expected drama. They expected chaos. But instead, you gave them silence. And in that silence, you made them realize that they had no real power over you. That is why silence terrifies them. It reveals their weakness. It strips away their illusions. It leaves them powerless. And notice how silence always lingers longer than words. Words fade as soon as they are spoken, but silence echoes in the mind. People replay your silence again and again, trying to interpret it, trying to decode it, trying to understand it. It unsettles them because they can't escape it. They can dismiss your words as lies, but they can't dismiss the absence of words. They can argue against your statements, but they can't argue against silence. Silence forces them to confront the truth they were trying to run from. The chosen ones understand this. You've learned that silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the art of holding your strength until the right moment. It is the discipline of knowing when to act and when to wait. It is the proof that you are not ruled by emotion, but by purpose. And when people see that, they fear it, because they realize you are not like them. You are not easily shaken. You are not easily provoked. You are not easily moved. Your silence is evidence of your inner mastery, and that mastery makes them uneasy. So when they whisper about you, when they gossip in your absence, when they try to provoke you into breaking your silence, remember this. They fear you not because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. They know that if your words ever matched the power of your silence, their illusions would collapse completely. That's why they push you. That's why they test you. That's why they watch you so closely. They are not waiting for your words. They are fearing them. And in the meantime, your silence is enough to remind them that you are chosen. They fear your silence because it forces them to hear the voices they've been running from all along. When you say nothing, the noise inside their own mind grows louder. Your silence becomes the mirror they can't escape. It leaves them alone with their guilt, their doubts, their regrets. And in that emptiness, they realize just how unshaken you truly are. Words can be argued, denied, dismissed, but silence can only be felt. And what they feel in your silence is power. You've learned that silence is not about absence. It's about presence. Your quiet doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've already said enough with the way you carry yourself. Silence is where your strength speaks louder than voices ever could. It shows discipline, self-control, wisdom. And that combination intimidates those who are still ruled by chaos. They cannot understand how someone who has every reason to fight back can choose peace instead. To them, your silence feels unnatural. To you, it feels like alignment. Remember the times when your silence shook an entire room. One moment, people were full of arrogance, laughing, mocking, speaking against you. And then you chose not to respond. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. They expected resistance, but what they got was presence. They expected anger, but what they got was composure. That silence was heavier than any word you could have spoken, because it revealed that their noise had no control over you. And that's why silence is feared. It cannot be defeated. They can fight words with words, but they cannot fight what is not spoken. They can twist sentences, but they cannot twist silence. They can argue with opinions, but they cannot argue with restraint. Silence leaves them powerless, and powerlessness is what they fear the most. This is why chosen ones often walk in silence more than they walk in speeches. You don't need to announce every move. You don't need to explain every step. You don't need to justify every decision. Your silence confuses them because they are used to people revealing their plans, their weaknesses, their insecurities through endless talking. But when you remain quiet, they can't predict you. They can't read you. They can't control you, and unpredictability terrifies them. They also fear what silence symbolizes. To them, your silence means you know something they don't. It means you're preparing for something bigger than they can imagine. It means you have access to wisdom, strength, or vision that's beyond their understanding. Your silence becomes a mystery, and mystery breeds fear. They cannot handle not knowing what you're thinking, what you're planning, or what you might do next. And so, your quiet becomes louder in their mind than any word you could speak. But silence is not just about what you don't say. It's about where you place your energy. Every time you refuse to argue, you are redirecting your energy into growth. Every time you refuse to clap back, you are preserving your peace. Every time you refuse to explain yourself, you are protecting your destiny. This is what makes your silence powerful. It is purposeful. It is not weakness, it is strategy. And when people realize that, they grow uneasy, because they see that your silence is not empty, it's full of meaning. And here's the deeper truth. They fear your silence because they know that if you ever decided to speak, your words would carry undeniable weight. The same restraint that keeps you quiet is what gives your voice authority when you finally choose to use it. People who are always loud are easily ignored. But people who know how to be silent carry power when they speak. And you are one of those people. Your silence doesn't erase your voice, it multiplies it. So let them fear your silence. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them whisper in confusion. Their fear is confirmation that your silence carries weight. Their unease is proof that your presence alone is enough. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to fill every space with words. The chosen ones know that silence is not emptiness. It is power disguised as quiet. They fear your silence because silence is the language of strength. When you do not react, when you do not explain, when you do not rise to every provocation, you reveal that you are beyond their control. People thrive on reactions. Your anger feeds them. Your arguments fuel them. Your explanations give them leverage. But when you remain silent, you starve their illusions. You deny them the satisfaction of power over you. And in that emptiness, they feel exposed. Your silence is heavy because it forces people to confront themselves. It forces them to ask, why doesn't this person need to defend themselves? Why don't they crumble under my accusations? Why aren't they begging for validation like everyone else? And those questions become uncomfortable because the answers point back to their own insecurity. Your silence is a reminder that your strength comes from within, and that unsettles those who depend on external approval to survive. Think about the relationships in your life where silence spoke louder than words ever could. When you chose not to argue, they called it pride. When you chose not to explain, they called it arrogance. When you chose to walk away quietly, they called it weakness. But deep down, they knew the truth. They knew your silence wasn't emptiness. It was choice. And choice is power. You chose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, destiny over distraction. That choice stripped them of their ability to control you, and that loss of control is what they really fear. Chosen ones understand that silence is often the most profound answer. Not every situation deserves your words. Not every critic deserves your energy. Not every storm deserves your attention. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about yourself to waste energy proving points that don't matter. It means you have mastered the art of restraint. and mastery terrifies those who are still ruled by impulse. Notice how people react differently to your silence. Some grow frustrated, demanding a response, because they cannot stand not knowing where you stand. Others grow nervous, interpreting your silence as knowledge they don't have. And some grow fearful, assuming your silence means you are planning something greater than they can imagine. Every reaction proves the same point. Your silence has weight. It creates ripples even when you don't move. It shifts atmospheres even when you don't speak. And this is why you are often misunderstood. People think silence means passivity. They think quiet means powerless. But you know the truth. Silence is where strength hides until it is ready to reveal itself. Silence is where vision grows before it manifests. Silence is where faith matures before it shows fruit. The chosen ones are not loud because they don't need to be. They carry power that doesn't require performance. And those who depend on performance for validation will always fear the kind of strength that needs no stage. Your silence is also prophetic. It speaks of the future before it arrives. It tells them that you are not distracted by the present noise because you are focused on the bigger picture. It tells them that you don't need to win arguments today because you are preparing to win battles tomorrow. It tells them that you are grounded in something deeper than circumstances, and that groundedness is terrifying to those who are tossed around by every wave of emotion. So when they call you distant, when they say you're cold, when they accuse you of being disconnected, smile. They are simply admitting that your silence is too much for them to handle. They are confessing that your refusal to react makes them uneasy. They are revealing that their confidence depends on noise, while yours grows in quiet. And that is why they fear you. The truth is, silence isn't about them, it's about you. It's about protecting your energy, guarding your destiny, preserving your strength. It's about choosing battles worth fighting and letting go of distractions that would only slow you down. It's about knowing that your power isn't in how loud you are, but in how unshaken you remain. And the more you master this, the more their fear grows. Because they realize they cannot reach you, they cannot shake you, they cannot control you. And nothing is more frightening to them than someone who is truly free. They fear your silence because it exposes the fragility of their noise. Noise is how they hide. It's how they mask their insecurity, their doubt, their emptiness. They talk endlessly to fill the gaps in their soul, hoping the sound will cover the hollowness inside. But when you respond with silence, their disguise falls apart. Suddenly, their words sound empty even to themselves. Suddenly, their confidence feels thin, their laughter feels forced, their arguments feel weak. Your silence becomes the magnifying glass that makes their noise look as small as it truly is. This is why silence is not weakness. It's dominance. It's control. It's the ability to choose your response rather than be dragged into theirs. You've learned that silence is not about losing the battle. It's about shifting the entire war. Because when you refuse to engage, you show that your energy is not for sale. Your peace is not negotiable. Your destiny is not up for debate. That is the kind of strength that cannot be broken, and that is why they fear you. Think of the last time someone tried to provoke you. They wanted you to explode, to argue, to lose yourself in anger. But you didn't. You held your ground. You chose silence. And in that silence, their power collapsed. They couldn't win without your reaction. They couldn't stand without your energy. They couldn't feel strong without your participation. And when you denied them that, they had no choice but to face the emptiness of their own noise. That moment was proof. Your silence was stronger than their shouting. The chosen ones understand timing. They know that silence doesn't mean absence. It means patience. It means waiting for the right moment. It means letting actions speak louder than words. Your silence has never been about passivity. It has always been about precision. You are not silent because you are powerless. You are silent because you know when to release power. That difference makes others nervous because they can't predict you. They don't know if your silence means peace or preparation. And uncertainty is more frightening than any argument. Notice how silence protects you. It keeps your plans safe, your spirit calm, your strength intact. The more you speak, the more they can twist your words, use them against you, drain your energy. But when you remain silent, you leave nothing for them to attack. They can't twist silence. They can't manipulate it. They can't break it. And so, your quiet becomes your shield. It keeps you untouchable. It keeps you unbothered. It keeps you aligned with your purpose. And that kind of untouchability is what terrifies them most. But silence is also creative. It's in the quiet where you gain clarity, where visions are born, where wisdom grows. People fear your silence because they sense you're building something in it. They don't know what's happening in your stillness, but they know something is. They suspect that while they are wasting energy on noise, you are gathering strength. They sense that while they are running in circles, you are moving forward silently. And that thought alone unsettles them. Because they know that when you finally move, your steps will carry the weight of all that quiet preparation. This is why chosen ones never underestimate silence. You know that every quiet season is a season of growth. Every time you withdraw, you're not retreating, you're refining. Every time you stay silent, you're not giving up, you're gathering. And when the time comes, your silence will break, not with noise, but with undeniable results. That is why they fear you. They know that when you finally speak, when you finally act, it will not be empty. It will be destiny manifesting. So don't let their fear pressure you into breaking your silence. Don't let their confusion push you to explain yourself. Don't let their restlessness trick you into giving away what is sacred. Your silence is your sanctuary. Your silence is your strategy. And the more they fear it, the more you know it's working. Because fear is just another word for respect they cannot admit. And respect, even unspoken, is still proof of your power. They fear your silence because silence means they no longer control the narrative. When you speak, they can twist your words. They can take pieces out of context. They can argue against you. But when you remain quiet, they are left without a weapon. Your silence takes away their leverage. It forces them to wrestle not with your voice, but with their own conscience. And no enemy is more relentless than the voice inside their own head. You've probably seen it happen before. The moment you chose silence, they became restless. They asked more questions. They repeated themselves. They tried harder to provoke you. Why? Because your lack of response exposed their need for validation. It revealed that their confidence depended on your reaction. And when you withheld that reaction, their power collapsed. Your silence reminded them that you were not playing their game, and that terrified them. Silence also reveals balance. It shows that you are not ruled by emotion, but by intention. Anyone can lash out when provoked. Anyone can shout when angry. Anyone can argue when threatened. But it takes discipline to remain still, to withhold, to choose quiet strength over loud chaos. And that discipline is rare. People fear what is rare because it reminds them of what they lack. Your silence makes them see the difference between temporary control and true mastery. And in the stillness, you grow. That is what unsettles them the most. They think silence is inactivity, but you know better. Silence is where you sharpen your vision, refine your purpose, and regain your energy. Every moment of quiet is a moment of building. They cannot see it, but they sense it. They sense that you are storing something inside, and that one day your silence will break with undeniable proof. That anticipation makes them afraid, because they know they cannot stop what they cannot predict. The chosen ones carry silence like armor. It shields you from unnecessary battles, from wasted energy, from draining distractions. Silence says, I do not owe you my response. I do not owe you my explanation. I do not owe you my peace. And when you walk in that authority, it unsettles those who depend on chaos to thrive. They need noise to survive. You need only quiet. And that difference is the very reason they fear you. But don't mistake their fear as hatred. It is also admiration. Deep down, even as they resist, they respect the kind of strength silence requires. They know how difficult it is to remain calm when provoked. They know how rare it is to carry composure when attacked. They know how powerful it is to walk away instead of lashing out. And though they may never say it out loud, your silence teaches them a lesson their words never could. That true strength is not measured in noise, but in stillness. So embrace the silence. Let them fear it. Let them wonder. Let them try to interpret it. Their confusion is confirmation. Their restlessness is proof. Their discomfort is a sign that your silence is doing what words never could. Because in the end, your silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of power. And that power will always speak louder than anything they say about you. They fear your silence because deep down, they know it is the mark of someone who cannot be moved. They can argue against your words, but they cannot argue against the calm you carry. They can attack your name, but they cannot touch your peace. They can laugh at your choices, but they cannot shake your foundation. Your silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is the presence of discipline, the presence of clarity, the presence of power. And those who live in noise cannot comprehend how someone can walk so strongly without a single sound. Think about it. How many times did they expect you to break? They waited for your voice to crack, for your anger to explode, for your spirit to collapse. But instead, you gave them silence. And that silence told them the truth they could never handle. That you are not ruled by circumstances. You are ruled by something greater. You are ruled by purpose. And purpose never panics. Your silence is feared because it is unpredictable. Noise is easy to read. Words reveal intent. Anger reveals wounds. Shouting reveals weakness. But silence? Silence reveals nothing on the surface. It keeps them guessing, wondering, second-guessing themselves. They don't know if your quiet means you're at peace or preparing. They don't know if it means you're surrendering or strategizing. They don't know what it means at all, and that mystery is terrifying. Because what they cannot define, they cannot control. And silence is not just about them, it is about you. In your quiet, you have found strength. In your stillness, you have found healing. In your restraint, you have found clarity. You've discovered that your destiny doesn't need the validation of voices around you. It doesn't need the approval of the crowd. It doesn't need the noise of recognition. Your destiny was written in silence long before anyone spoke about you. That is why you can walk in silence now, because you know the truth doesn't need defending. It only needs time. So when they fear your silence, let them. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. Let them wrestle with the emptiness. Their fear is not your burden. It is their reflection. Because your silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the wisdom of knowing that not everything deserves your energy. It is the wisdom of knowing that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the strongest. It is the wisdom of knowing that your power grows when it is not wasted on proving points that don't matter. And remember this, silence does not mean you will never speak. It means that when you do, your words will carry the weight of everything you've withheld. It means that when your time comes, your voice will not sound like noise. It will sound like truth. That is why silence is so powerful. It is the seed that makes your words, when finally spoken, impossible to ignore. They will listen, not because you are loud, but because you are undeniable. Now, as you stand in this season, you must embrace the truth of who you are. You are chosen, and chosen ones do not need to shout to prove themselves. You don't need to raise your voice. You are already raised by destiny. You don't need to fight with noise. You have already won with presence. Your silence is your signature, your mark, your shield. It is what separates you, it is what protects you, and it is what makes you unforgettable.